Last year we changed out our U3 and common Bermuda grass to some newly developed cultivars midlawn and midfield that are more cold hardy and actually more acclimated to our Oklahoma conditions. Now these cultivars were released in a joint partnership by Oklahoma State University and Kansas State University. And we actually had them fill in probably last year in 6, 7, 8 weeks at the most, and we were real pleased with the coverage, except for this spot right here. Now, about a year later, we still don't have any of the Bermuda grass filling in, and so we've tried to decide what could the problem be. And really it's based on a process of elimination, but the possibilities are soil compaction, and of course here in Stillwater we have heavy soils anyway. It could also be during the development of this property there was grade changes or sand mixed in, various things like that, so we have different soil types could also cause the same problem. Or it could be a chemical spill of some type, either through pesticides or fertilizers. And again, with process of elimination, you need to kind of know the history of it. Well, we know that our soil has not been graded or changed around. The soil type is pretty much uniform, and one of the best ways to determine your soil type is to take a soil probe or a shovel, go down about 6 to 8 inches and pull that out of there, and you can actually look at the soil and see that ours is pretty uniform. And it wasn't too compacted because that was pretty easy to get the probe in. So we can eliminate that problem. Now, in especially cases of new home construction, you may pull that out and see levels of sand or even lime or bricks or anything, and obviously that could cause a problem, and you would know that just by looking at the soil under the ground level. So if it's not compaction or those types of things, what else could it be? Well, the only way to find out if it's a fertilizer spill or something is to do a soil test, which we've done, and you can see the holes here where we've used a soil probe, and we've taken the little plugs like this, mixed them together, took in about a pint jar full to our soils lab, and we got back the soils test. And on that test, we find that our pH is 5.5, our surface nitrogen is 86, our phosphorus is 218, and our potassium is 727. And what that tells us, the pH is very acidic for a lawn, especially Bermuda. It needs to be about 6 to 6.5, so it's pretty low. The surface nitrogen, it's very seldom that you'll ever see that number that high because nitrogen leaches so quickly through the soil, and ours is 86. And then our P and K are both extremely high, so that's pretty much telling us that some kind of fertilizer has been spilled right in this spot. It's been concentrated, one that would also lower the soil pH, because our soil pH in the other areas is up around 6, 7. And you can tell that that's a huge difference just from this one spot. So in that particular case, what we'll do is we'll put in a little bit of lime. Remember, lime raises a pH. And for about a 10 square foot area, we're going to put in a ½ pound of lime. And I'm going to put on some gloves because as windy as it is, I'm going to apply it by hand. And I'm just really a dolomitic lime, one that's more granular would be better than this powder. And as windy as it is, I would even encourage people to use a dust mask today, but I'm going to keep it real close and put it just in this area. And again, that's about a ½ pound. And really probably the best thing even would be to work this into the ground with a tiller, but since the grass is trying to encroach in here, we're going to go ahead and just apply it on the top like a lot of people would do. Now the other thing to break up the surface tension is to just mix in some dishwashing detergent in the water, a few drops, and we're going to stir it up. And that acts as a surfactant. And so to get that high nitrogen and stuff out, just pouring a little bit of this on will help water soak through and penetrate this area a little bit more to help flush out those high chemicals. So a little bit of detergent will help break up that surface tension and let this area actually drain more. Now back on our chemical contamination, we've pretty much found out what our problem is, but if it was chemicals, a soil test will not tell you that. It's strictly nutrients. So you'd have to go to a lab to get your chemical test done, and you'd want to have an idea of what it would be because it can be very costly to have those tests done. So just process of elimination, a soil test helped identify our problem here. And it's one that you may be seeing and it may be the other options, but hopefully within a few weeks We'll get this flushed out, the pH will change, and that will take even months, and the grass will eventually start to encroach in, and we'll never know that this problem existed. Now let me take you over and show you some other areas of problem Bermuda grass situations. How's this for a turf problem? Slimy mold. It's actually a problem starting to show up on a lot of Bermuda grass lawns, including ours, and you'll see it on the Bermuda foliage as well as some of the weeds like dandelions, but it's truly just a mold. It's got little gray pustules, and when you walk across it or touch it, you can see how it comes off on your hands and clothes and shoes. It's really not one to be concerned about, though. It's not a parasitic pathogen, so it doesn't harm the grass. Sometimes it just shades out the foliage with the chlorophyll process, but really the best way is when you mow over it, it's going to take care of it. As the dew starts to dry out, it stops. So later and drier in the summer, you don't see it as much, or you can just brush it off and you can see the dust blowing on it. But there's really no need to get any fungicides out or spray it, because it's just one of those things that doesn't harm anything. It takes care of itself as the season goes on. And that's also true with mushrooms, because they'll pop up and you just break them off. They're usually just from decaying wood. So really nothing to worry about. Your neighbors might think you're crazy by brushing it off, but again, it's called slimy mold on Bermuda lawns. Well, here's a lawn combination that you don't see too often: buffalo grass in combination with fescue. Now, the homeowner tells us that the buffalo grass is out further away from the home, where they actually drive some to get back into their property, or they park their cars, so it takes a lot of heavy traffic. Then as we get closer into the home, it's more shaded, where they have a nice blend of fescue here. And at first glance, the fescue actually looks pretty nice, but upon further inspection, you start to see some spots that are starting to yellow out a little bit. And up here closer is a very good example of a spot that's not only starting to yellow, but further along in the process, and it's actually turning brown. And what we have here is a fungus disease called brown patch on fescue, which can also get on Bermuda grass lawns and some other grasses as well. And the way it actually starts out, and you'll see a few little tiny spots that are kind of a yellowish brown color, and they're very small. And as the disease progresses, it gets bigger and bigger and starts to actually kill out the leaf blades. And upon closer inspection, you can actually pull some of the leaf blades up and see the circular spots that are killing the entire blade out. And obviously it keeps spreading. Now, the reason it's spreading is that usually moisture has to be in contact with this disease for it to spread. And if you think about our spring, some places, especially where this lawn is in Stillwater, it's been very dry this spring. So how could it be spreading so bad if it's been dry? Well, the reason for that is, even though we've not had a lot of rainfall, there's been a lot of heavy dews on this lawn, and just the heavy dews in the morning is enough moisture for the disease to spread. So again, it starts to spread and kill the entire leaf blades out, and you end up with these big dead spots in the lawn. Now, as the summer gets hotter and drier, the disease goes inactive and you don't see it, so it doesn't spread as much, but the spots are still here, because with fescue, you can't overseed it until the fall, till it cools off again. So let me talk about some cultural, non-chemical ways to help keep this disease from spreading. First of all, if you're going to use fescue, it's a good idea to get a blend of different cultivars. And the homeowner tells me they still have 3 or 4 different blends, but we're still ending up with some diseased areas. Also, this is a case where we would tell you to make sure that your lawnmower blade is very sharp, and you can tell that we're getting some dull areas, and that will actually help spread the disease. It shreds the blade and it's more susceptible to the disease. Also, if you're pulling a water hose across, you can drag it. Just think about it, dragging a water hose across, you're spreading it across the surface of the leaf blades. And this is another case too, where during the wet times of year early on, it's a good idea to go ahead and bag the clippings, because letting the clippings fall or drag them and dropping them along as they fall in other spots, you can actually increase the disease presence. So bag the clippings, compost them, and it's okay to reuse them in your flower bed, vegetable garden, whatever, because the disease doesn't hurt those crops, just types of turf grasses. This is also referred to sometimes as the rich man's disease, because people who fertilize a lot with nitrogen is going to get more of this disease, because you're obviously going to get more leaf blade growth, and that's more susceptibility, more tender to the disease. So cut down on the nitrogen, watch your practices. Even walking across it when it's wet can spread the disease. Mowing when it's wet can spread it. So try to do any activity on it when it's dry. And if you're going to have to water it, it's also better, again, to water early in the morning so it will dry up quicker, because this is truly a case, the longer the lawn stays wet, the better chances for the disease to spread. So those are some practices that you can keep in mind, but in this case, before they lose the entire lawn, they may want to come in with a chemical spray, and there's several fungicides that you can use. Some of the recommended ones are Banner, Balaton, Daconil, Fungo, and Manzate are some of the most common fungicides that you can spray. Now, if you're just getting one or two areas like this, do what we would call a preventative spray. And with the preventative spray, just come in and spray the area that's treated, because that way you'll keep these green blades from dying further on. And then whatever you do, make sure you spray the outside of the ring at least 8, 12, 15 inches, maybe even 2 feet, to keep it from spreading on out. So that's a preventative. But if you look closely at this lawn, there's enough smaller spots starting to show up. It'd probably be a good idea just to go ahead and spray the entire lawn, because it's only less than about 1,500 square feet anyway. It's a pretty small lawn. So there's all kinds of preventative, sanitary type practices, just common sense you can do to avoid this. But if it gets too far along on you, you may have to revert to chemical control, depending on what your preference and tolerance of the disturbances of grass. And it's not only a problem in fescue, sometimes you'll see it in other grasses, sometimes even Bermuda grass. But if you were going to take a sample to make sure, you collect some of the leaves that are starting to turn brown, some that are already starting to get the spots on them, and get a mixture, take it to your county office and they can send it in for you. But one of those things that you may be facing in your own home lawn as well.